Hello and welcome. My name is Cole, and today we are talking about a miniature by Tchaikovsky, the Valse sentimentale in F minor, Opus 51, number 6. Tchaikovsky, of course, is best known for his magnificent larger-scale works like his symphonies and ballets, but he could write a very nice piano piece on occasion as well, despite not being a pianist himself. So this little waltz, I first discovered this in an old video from the 1950s of the great Russian-American cellist Gregor Piatigorsky, who I absolutely revere. And I include a link to the original video in the description box as well. Anyway, I was very moved by this little piece, so I did a little research, and I discovered that it was originally a piano piece, and that what Piatigorsky plays is actually an abridgment. So the original piece is in ternary form, or ABA, and Piatigorsky just plays the last A section. Well, fine, I thought. That's probably just because they were including this on a kind of documentary about Piatigorsky, so they just included an abridgment of the piece. In the meantime, I learned the original, and I have always loved playing it. Well, sometime later, a violinist that I sometimes work with asked me to accompany them on this piece, and lo and behold, what they were playing was the shortened version again. So actually what Piatigorsky was playing was an actual shortened arrangement that was published. I even found the arranger. It was, I believe, arranged by Viktor Kubatsky, who incidentally was principal cellist for the Bolshoi Theater for many years and was the dedicatee for Shostakovich's cello sonata. So at the time, this was just another example in a string, so to speak, of examples of Tchaikovsky's works being treated in a fairly high-handed manner by great virtuosi. The example of this little piece is a fairly minor one, but there's a famous example of the violin concerto, which Leopold Auer originally refused to premiere because he felt that it was a musically weaker piece than Tchaikovsky's other works, and that it needed revisions to the solo part. And Auer was actually a great violinist and pedagogue, and he was the teacher of Jascha Heifetz and Nathan Milstein, among others. Well, at any rate, Auer came out with his own edition of the concerto, which, along with some very excellent expansions of the solo violin part, also has some rather questionable cuts and alterations to the form of the work. And then again, there's also the instance of the wonderful Rococo variations for cello and orchestra. This piece was written for a German cellist named Wilhelm Fitzenhagen, who was another faculty member in Moscow with Tchaikovsky. And Tchaikovsky actually asked Fitzenhagen to look through the piece and improve the solo part. Well, unfortunately, he did more than that. He also changed the order of the variations and deleted one variation before the premiere, conveniently forgetting to tell Tchaikovsky. The original version wasn't restored until the 1940s by Kubatsky, the very same Kubatsky who made this arrangement of the valse. And even now, a lot of people use Fitzenhagen's arrangement, although I think that the form in the original version is really superior. Then also another famous story, Nikolai Rubinstein, who was one of the great virtuosi in Russia in the 19th century and also a fellow faculty member at the conservatory in Moscow, refused to play Tchaikovsky's first piano concerto when the composer showed it to him. He insisted that it needed massive changes and substantial cuts. In that instance, Tchaikovsky flatly refused, and instead he sent the score to the German pianist Hans von Bulow to perform for the first time, and he did that to tumultuous success. Of course, this concerto was one of the most famous ever, and one of Tchaikovsky's most loved works. Well, the success that the piece had brought Nikolai around, and he still suggested some pianistic improvements which were actually quite fitting, including changing the opening chords in the piano from this to this. So why were Tchaikovsky's contemporaries so high-handed about his music? Well, there might have been several reasons. For one, Tchaikovsky was not an instrumentalist, and indeed not much of a performer at all, except as a conductor. Apparently he wasn't even that great as a conductor. He was really one of the earlier examples of what I would call, for want of a better term, a pure composer, who was not himself a performer of any kind. In this way, he was similar to his famous German colleague, Richard Wagner, who was a fair pianist, but not a virtuoso by any means. But in Wagner's case, Wagner was really a very accomplished conductor. In fact, he was famous as a conductor, so Tchaikovsky perhaps did not even have that distinction. Another reason may have been Tchaikovsky's rather shy, reserved, and self-deprecating manner in regards to his own works. And despite what I consider to be his remarkable skill as a composer, I think not only me, but also posterity has recognized him. He was constantly consumed by self-doubt about his works and their value, which made him really an easy prey to criticism, especially from respected sources like eminent virtuosi and well-known critics. Also, Tchaikovsky as a composer was comfortable with a certain degree of repetition in his works, which was not always so fashionable at that time. I'm talking about repetition in particular in large-scale works, so his handling of large forms, although very adroit, is more akin to Mozart or Schubert, who were kind of relaxed in accepting repetition in larger forms. I think his structures actually work very well when convincingly performed, and I may talk about that more in future videos. At any rate, this piece is as beautiful on the piano as it is on the cello or violin, and I think that the middle section, which is rarely played by non-piano players, really adds a lot to the effectiveness of the whole piece. It has kind of sudden changes of mood and suavely sculpted lines, and it's really quite beautiful when taken as part of the whole. So thank you for watching this video, and if you like what I'm doing in these videos, if you find them interesting and you want to keep seeing this kind of content, please consider making a donation to my Patreon account, www.patreon.com/independentpianist. Donations will help me to put more focus onto this channel, and any amount's appreciated. So thank you very much for that.